Hey everyone, Brendan Sander here. How are you? Thanks so much for joining me, and welcome to a special review for the brand new Scorpions From the First Sting new compilation album that is out celebrating the band's 60th anniversary, if you can believe that. It is spanning 50 years of music, 1972 all the way up to 2022. Just released on October 17th of 2025. Going to get into a full review, break down, explain the whole thing, what's on it, what's not on it, the different versions that are out there, all that sort of stuff in just a bit. But before we do, if you're new to my channel and haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do. Also leave a comment, hit like. All those things do help support my channel. I greatly appreciate it. And of course, as an added bonus, by turning on notifications, you'll never miss an episode and stay up to date on cool things like this with a review for the brand new Scorpions From the First Sting compilation album. So the history of the Scorpions is pretty well known. I mean, they're a German hard rock band. A lot of people don't know, though, that they started in 1965. They didn't record their debut album, Lonesome Crow, until 1972, though, which featured a very young Michael Schenker, 16 years old on it, of course, before he would go on to UFO, MSG, that sort of stuff. And he would make a brief return back to the band. But in the intervening time, starting in 1973, the band had guitarist Uli John Roth, and that always seems to be a defining division within fans, the Uli John Roth years versus the later, more commercial period of the band. And with Uli John Roth, they released 4 studio albums between 1974 and 1977. And up to this point, they had only had minor success, at least outside of their home country, not really breaking through and achieving much in the U.S. But at this point, Uli John Roth is not very happy with that more commercial direction where the band is going. So he leaves and they bring in Mathis Jabs. But then also in 1979, we have Michael Schenker making a return and playing on a few of the songs for Love Drive, though he doesn't stay very long and is out. And it's weird because for a very brief time, the band was a triple guitar threat. Rudolf Schenker, Michael Schenker, and Mathis Jabs. But as I said, very short-lived. Michael's out, Mathis stays. And going forward for the next 5 albums through the 80s, it was the band's biggest period, most commercial, where every album sold 1 million copies or more, culminating with 1990's Crazy World, including the band's biggest hit, their number 4 Billboard Hot 100 song, Wind of Change, at least in the US, but around the world, it would go to number 1 in 14 different countries. The band has never broken up. They've never taken a break. They have regularly released albums continuously through the 90s, the 2000s, on up to their most recent album, Rock Believer, in 2022, which was celebrating the band's 50th anniversary of recording from their debut album, Lonesome Crow, 1972, 2022. Can you believe it? 50 years that the band had been releasing albums. And of course, this year, 2025, is 60 years on from 1965. Therefore, we get this From the First Sting, celebrating those 60 years and 50 years of recording. So the version that I'm holding up, it's the single disc edition of this. And you'll see that it's got 16 tracks on it. It clocks in at 76 minutes long. Now, the single disc edition, as I understand it, was created for the US market because the European market gets a 2 CD edition with double the amount of tracks at 32 tracks. But I find it interesting that they went with a single edition for the US and also did not give us the opportunity to buy that 2 CD edition. Though in the end of the day, it probably worked out for the best because what's of interesting note is a couple different ways that the information was presented to us. Number one, The streaming edition has an entirely different track listing, and it only lists 12 tracks on it. Okay, I get that, because the Amazon CD edition of it listed 12 tracks, not 16. But when it arrived, it came as 16 tracks. And the tracks on here, different than the ones on the streaming. So what was kind of interesting about that is that the 4 tracks not listed on Amazon turned out to be tracks from the early era of the band, that Ole John Roth period of the band. But the album itself as a whole is split pretty evenly between their formative years and their most commercial heyday period, basically breaking down as 7 songs before the band broke in the US and was a huge household name around the world, and then 7 songs from that period, their heyday, the most commercial era, and 2 songs from the later era of the band. But the song selection isn't necessarily what you would expect from the band. There are plenty of bigger songs that are missing from this album, and sometimes they use a live version or a rare version that isn't the studio cut, so it's sort of the lesser known song. Song selections cover 12 studio albums, and that's quite a few albums to fit on a 16-track compilation album. But that means that 7 albums are not represented. The band has released a total of 19 studio albums, Rock Believer being the 19th. So the 2 CD edition, the 32 track edition, I'm quite sure covers all of the albums from throughout their career. At least I would certainly hope so, being a 32 track edition. What's also interesting though is, again, some of the song selection. So Flight of the Rainbow, this one here gets 2 song selections. It's their 1974 album. This Is My Song. That one is an unreleased 1973 live performance before the studio version would turn up on the album. And then we also get Speedy's Coming. The follow-up album, In Trance, third studio album, 1975, it too gets 2 songs represented. The title track, In Trance, and then Top of the Bill, which is a 1978 live version that features a really long drum solo in it, and a little surprising that they would choose a live version of not only that song, but of a song that would have a drum solo in it, making it a much longer song when they could have shaved it down and even used a studio version and then probably fit one more song onto this album. The album Love Drive only is represented by 1 track, Always Somewhere, and they don't include the songs Loving You Sunday Morning or Holiday. And that was a bit of a shock to me to not get those on here. Getting the song Always Somewhere over, say, eat the song Holiday. I've always felt Holiday was the bigger song, but then we're going to find that across the board on this release. Blackout in 1982 is only represented by 1 track, No One Like You. They leave off the title track Blackout and Can't Live Without You. Again, songs that I would have expected to have been included. In fact, out of the 3, I would have assumed Blackout would be the one included, not No One Like You. Though the song No One Like You is my favorite song from the album, so I win, and I guess people who like Blackout don't. The album that gets the most representation is actually the album you would expect it to be, Love at First Sting from 1984. Their most commercial album is represented by 3 songs, Rock You Like a Hurricane, Big City Nights. Still Loving You is included, but it is an unreleased 1996 live version with violin from Vanessa Mae on it. An interesting choice, and where they do it within the track listing is that they move that one into the 90s because these go chronologically. So as opposed to Still Loving You appearing back in the 1984 era and not having chosen a live version of Still Loving You from Worldwide Live, which I would have expected, it moves it out of sequence. I would have rather a song from that 90s era to have been represented as opposed to a live version of Still Loving You. So of the 80s heyday, there are no songs from their 10th studio album, Savage Amusement. They skip right over this. I would have loved to have seen the song Don't Stop at the Top, Rhythm of Love, Passion Rules the Game. All of those absolutely fantastic songs. Believe in Love, another very big ballad that is not represented. But of course, we then get 1990s Crazy World, and this one here, they only represent one of the 5 singles that were released, but it's expected, Wind of Change, though on the 2 CD edition, there's actually 2 versions of the song. So I'm actually glad that we're not having that happen here. On the single disc edition of this, we just get the 1 studio track of it, because I believe the other version is the one with the orchestra from Moment of Glory. I think that's where they pull it from. And so here we just get the album version, which I think is a beautiful song in and of itself, not needing anything extra as part of it. And so they leave off then Tease Me, Please Me, Don't Believe Her, Hit Between the Eyes, Send Me an Angel. None of those represented. I would have thought that Crazy World would have gotten a 2-song selection at least, as opposed to some of those other early John Roth era albums, you know, or even the 3 songs from Love at First Sting. So there's no representation of the albums Face the Heat from 93, Pure Instinct in 1996, which is a personal favorite of mine, Eye to Eye from 1999, which despite its sound actually has a few good tracks. They probably could have pulled one of the ballads to make it work. Unbreakable in 2004, which is an absolutely fantastic return to form style album, should have been represented. Sting in the Tail 2010 does not get represented, even though they felt this was one of the best albums they ever made. And this is when they were first going to retire. They said they made such a great album, they want to go out on top. They don't even represent it here. And then Return to Forever, which is an album where they brought in outside writers, and for whatever reason didn't like the album, though I love this album. I would have loved something from here as well. But what we do get is 1 song from Humanity Hour 1 in 2007, what I would call the title track, the song Humanity, a ballad, and then 1 song off of Rock Believer 2022, the title track, Rock Believer. And that's the breakdown of the album as a whole and where all of the tracks are coming from. So let's take a look at this thing. I actually really think that the album cover on here is perfect. We got the iconic scorpion in the middle. I love this sort of swirling effect that is happening. Very stark in the gold and black. The back side of this, same sort of thing, just gold and black, and a straight top-down track listing where they put the year next to all of the tracks. So when we kick off with In Search of the Peace of Mind, 1972, early on, and then we go into This Is My Song, which is live at Rock and Pop, 3rd of November, 1973, we know immediately what we're getting, what version we're getting, whether it's live, whether it's studio, and what year they're counting it from. And so that's a very cool thing to run down there. And inside this here, we then get a nice little thank you to the fans there, and then open up like that. And we get a booklet up front and the CD and the back side of this here, like that. No sleeve on it. Let's pull out the booklet though, and I'll thumb through that because this is a very nicely done booklet. This is the hype sticker on it, calling out the 60 years. And here we go. So unfortunately, no write-up on the inside, no kind of history or anything like that, but we do get a ton of band photos throughout this booklet, which is very cool because we don't often get a lot of that anymore. But the Scorpions, not a typical band, and they're also a European band, and these sort of bands still believe and love in CDs, physical media, so it's great that they are doing that, and they're showing some of the cool achievements that the band has done. And then we get the breakdown of where the song comes from in the back and the credits on who performs. So we are getting that sort of stuff with this release. bottom line, definitely their most comprehensive single disc CD collection that is out there. There are some compilations that are a little more comprehensive, 2 CD and 3 disc, box set edition type things like that. But this one here, spanning from 72 up to 2022, most comprehensive also in that regard. Though it does focus a little too heavily on the early years, in my opinion, before the band broke big. I would have liked to have seen a few songs dropped in favor of others. One track each to have been dropped from Fly to the Rainbow and In Trance. Only cover one track from those, and instead pick 2 songs from one of those 7 albums that isn't represented. I think it would have made for a much more well-rounded compilation. Additionally, I like the rare versions that are chosen. They sound great. These live versions of songs actually fit really well in the context of things. So they're not bad, they're not jarring. They work with the album very well. But top of the bill, that one there is the one that had the drum solo in it. It is a much longer version of this song that doesn't really need to be there, though the drum solo is actually quite interesting on it, and I'm not a big fan of drum solos, but it works out well, which is probably why they chose it. I would have rather them have put the studio version of Top of the Bill or drop that song entirely and instead do 2 shorter songs to have given us a 17-track compilation for the same time, though we didn't really get that. That said, the compilation is really good. It sounds wonderful. I do think it flows nicely from track to track, including those live versions that are on it. I think they picked the right songs for this collection as a whole. So this is not just a collection of hits. Sometimes hits collections are a little jarring because they just choose big songs, but they don't worry about the flow from one track to the other. I would say this is different than that. This is a more standalone type album where the overview of the band is in fact covered and each song flows really well from the other. So it is a great album to listen to as well as a great overview, but not necessarily focusing solely on the hits. And we have enough hits compilations that, for me at least, it makes this much better. And so I'm very happy with it. I've been listening to it a lot repeatedly. Very much enjoying those early years featuring Uli John Roth, enjoying that much more than I ever have. So I think it's very representative of what the band is and was sound-wise, going through the different years, not just being another typical compilation, a throwaway collection. This is much more than that, and thereby I think it's actually essential for Scorpions fans, in my opinion, to get and have in a collection. It'll pump you up and make you want to listen to the entire collection throughout all their years, because this is that good. And there you go. That is my review of Scorpions from the first Sting. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you picked up either version, the 2 CD or the single CD, or you've streamed it with that different track listing on it, what's your thoughts and why all the different versions of this collection? Why not just one singular version out there? In my opinion, they could have just done the single disc edition. They did it so well. For what it is a great collection and a great way to celebrate. And only a couple months down the road in November, we're getting a live album from their 60th anniversary live concert, their homecoming concert. So looking forward to that. We'll touch on that at that time. Until then, hope you guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye, everyone.